So far we have four lectures on the PT365 Economy for 2026 prelims. We have started with the banking and monetary policy. Then we discuss finance and taxation. Then financial market and payment system. And the last discussion that we had was on the external sector. Now today we'll further move on to discuss the growth and development. Okay. But certain aspects or certain topics were is still we need to cover from last chapter number 4. Okay, which is external sector. So let us do that. Okay, so remittances tax. So first topic is the remittance tax. Okay, now, what is the remittance tax? So, U.S. House approves one big beautiful bill with 3.5 outward remittance tax provision called the exercise tax on remittance transfer. The newly proposed provision will effect from January 1, 2026. Remittances. Now, what is remittances? So, the movement of funds from the country of work back to the home country is known as the remittances. Remittances inflow doubled to US dollar 118.7 billion in 2023-24 compared to 2011. Top five source countries for India. So let us know the five most important countries from where most of the remittances of India are coming. So US is the at 27.7%, then UK, UAE, then UK, then Saudi Arabia and the Singapore. Now top three recipient states in India. Top three recipient states in India. So Maharashtra 20.5%, followed by Kerala and Tamil Nadu. India tops the list of recipient countries for remittances in 2024 and is way ahead of second place Mexico with $68 billion. Now, significance of remittances for India. Contribution to economy. Remittances accounted for over 10% of India's $1 trillion gross current in accounts inflows in financial year 25. Trade deficit support represented 47% of India's $287 billion merchandise trade deficit. A stable source of financing. Remittances surpass gross inward foreign direct investment (FDI). Related news: India's outward remittances for overseas education fell to an 8-year low under the liberalized remittances scheme. About liberalized remittances scheme. So Genesis introduced in 2004 by Reserve Bank of India (RBI) benefit all resident individuals, including minors, are allowed to freely remit up to US dollar 250,000 per financial year for any permissible current or capital account transaction for a combination of both. There are no restrictions on the frequency of remittances under it. The scheme is not available to corporate partnership firms, Hindu undivided family trust, etc. Free trade agreements. Now, what are these FTA? Because FTAs are in news for 1 year or so. Now, India and UK has signed a free trade agreement. What is this? So let us explore. So both countries also agreed to negotiate on reciprocal double contribution convention. Okay, contribution convention. Now what is this? So double contribution convention is a type of social security agreement. It will support business and trade by ensuring that employees moving both both the countries and their employers will only be liable to pay social security contributions in one country at a time. uh, it will include employees temporarily working in the other country up to 3 years. Up to 3 years, it will not affect individuals' rights to access benefits from the country in which they pay social security contributions or the requirement to pay the UK immigration health charges. Okay, so this is a double contribution convention. It is a kind of social security agreement. Now, key highlights of India UK FTA. So, zero duty market access. Zero duty market access means approximately 99% of Indian exports will enjoy zero duty access to the UK market, covering almost 100% of trade value. On the other hand, India will cut levies on 90% of British products sold in the country. Eases mobility for Indian professionals. It includes contractual service suppliers, business visitors, investors, inter-corporate transferees, their partners and dependent children with right to work, etc. Allowed participation of UK businesses in procurement. UK businesses will be able to compete for a wide variety of goods, services, and construction procurements for the majority of central government entities and state-owned entities. Okay, so remember zero duty market access, then eases mobility for Indian professionals, allowed participation of UK businesses in procurement. Okay, now let us understand about the free trade agreement, which is basically a static part. So FTAs are arrangements between two or more countries or trading blocs that agree to reduce or eliminate customs tariff and non-tariff barriers on substantial trade between them. Now, what are FTAs? So, FTAs are basically the agreements between two or more countries or trading blocs that agree to reduce or eliminate customs, tariff, and non-tariff barriers on substantial trade between them. It covers trade in goods like agriculture and industrial products, or trade in services like banking, construction, trading, etc. And also areas like intellectual property rights. Okay, so it covers trade in goods like agriculture or industrial products, or trade in services like banking, construction, trading, etc. And also areas like intellectual property rights, etc. Early harvest scheme is a precursor to an FTA and other trade agreements. So early harvest scheme is a precursor. Okay, so if you want to do FTA, you need to have first early harvest scheme. Okay, and FTAs act as an exception to the most favored nation principle of the WTO. Okay, so FTA is basically the exception to most MFN, most favored nation principle of the World Trade Organization. Now, hierarchy of trade agreements. Let us understand hierarchy of trade agreements. So deepest level of integration, human economic policies institution, these are come under the economic union. Then you have common market, free movements of labor and capital, harmonized technical standards. Then you have custom unions. So similarly you have CESA, CEPA, FTA and PTA. Okay, so PTA is preferential trade agreement, reduced tariffs on agreed number of goods. Then FTA, you have reduced tariffs on most goods. Then you have say CESA and CAP, additional agreement on areas like regulatory issues, services, investment, competition, government procurement disputes, etc. Custom union, zero duty trade, okay, among countries and common tariffs against rest of the world. Common market, free movements of labor and capital, harmonized technical standards, and economic union, deepest level of integration, common economic policies, institutions, etc. Now, India EFTA Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement (TEPA). Let us understand. So, India and European Free Trade Association (EFTA) Trade and Economic Partnership comes into effect from 1st October 2025. Now, what is European Free Trade Association nations? Who are the part of that? So, Iceland, basically you have Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland. Okay, so four countries are there. So Iceland, Liechtenstein, uh, Norway, Switzerland. Among these, Switzerland is India's largest trading partner, followed by Norway. India is the first FTA. India is the first free trade agreement signed by India. It is the first free trade agreement signed by India to incorporate a binding commitment specifically linked to investment and job creation. It offers binding commitment of $100 billion investment and 1 million direct jobs in the next 15 years. Okay, so European Free Trade Association, who are the members? So you have Sweden, then you have Norway. Sorry, not Sweden. You have Switzerland, then you have Iceland, then you have Norway. So SIL. So, okay. So remember SIL. Switzerland, Switzerland, you have Norway, you have Iceland, and then Liechtenstein. Then you have listen Liechtenstein. So Switzerland, Iceland, Norway, and Liechtenstein. Okay, key feature of this agreement. So market access goods. So EAFTA offers substantial access covering 100% of non-agriculture products, services, home mobility. The pact estimates exports in IT, business services, and education. It enables mutual recognition agreements in professional services such as nursing, chartered accountancy, and architecture, chemicals, and allied products. EFTA has offered zero reduced tariffs on more than 90% of India's export. India has granted market access to nearly 80% of its tariff lines covering 95% of EFTA's export. Now, export promotion mission. What is this? Let us understand. So, Union Cabinet approved the export promotion mission and also the introduction of credit guarantee scheme for exporters. Now, what is export promotion mission? So, vision provides a comprehensive, flexible, digitally driven framework for export promotion. Financial outlay rupees 25,060 crores. Timeline 6 years for okay. Targeted sector priority sector will be extended to be sectors impacted by recent global tariff escalation such as textile, leather, gems and jewelry, engineering goods and marine products. Mission architecture, it will operate through two distinct but integrated sub schemes. Niryat Protsahan financial support designed to improve access to affordable trade finance for diversification into new markets. And Nirayat Disa, designed to enhance the market readiness and competitiveness of exporters. Implementation Agency, Director General of Foreign Trade, Director General of Foreign Trade. Key objectives of export promotion mission. So we are talking about export promotion mission. So facilitate access to affordable trade finance for MSME, enhance export readiness through compliance and certification support, improve market access and visibility for Indian products, boost export from non-traditional districts and sectors. India's export landscape overview. India's export sector contributes 21% in overall GDP, and 45% of India's total exports are contributed by MSME. India's share in global exports of goods and services is around 2.5%. According to RBI, India's total exports reached $824.9 billion in 2024-25. Merchandise exports increased to $437.4 billion, and services export is to a historic high of $387.5 billion in 2025-25. Now, credit guarantee scheme for exporters. So what is this? So its objective is to enhance liquidity, support market diversification, boost employment, and improve global competitiveness. Total credit support up to additional 20,000 crore uh, co- collateral free with 100% guarantee coverage by National Credit Trustee Company Limited. Okay, beneficiary both MSME and non-MSME sectors. Implementing agency, Department of Financial Services through NCGTC. Oversight body, a management committee formed under the chairmanship of Secretary, Department of Financial Services. So here we have finished the fourth chapter, which is external sector. Now we'll move to discuss the fifth chapter, which is the growth and development. Okay, let us understand. So the economics of price, supply and demand relations. Okay, so you see these are the graphs. You have quantity on the axis and you have price on the y axis. Okay, so there is a relationship between quantity and the price. Okay, so you can see that. Now we need to understand inflation and price elasticity. Okay, so inflation and price is elasticity. How inflation and good type affect price elasticity, let us understand. So now what is inflation? So inflation is basically general rise in the prices of goods and commodities. Okay, rise in general prices of goods and commodities. So basically rise in the prices of goods and commodities. That is what is called the inflation. Okay. So you have column one, that is inelastic. Okay. So graph. Let us try to understand. So you have. So I don't know. So we'll leave this one. Okay. Now let us see the producer price index. What is producer price index? So a new 18-member working group led by Niti Aayog member Ramesh Chand to examine the proposed producer price index (PPI) and suggest a roadmap for switching from the WPI to PPI. It measures the average changes. What is the producer price index? So it measures basically the average changes in the price producer receives for his goods and services sold in the domestic market or exports. Two types. There are two types of two types. So output PPI and input PPI. Output PPI is when goods and services leave the place of production, whereas input PPI is when goods and services enter the production process. Now, why there is a need to replace WPI? So WPI has inbuilt bias due to double multiple counting of same product. WPI does not include exports and imports. WPI also excludes the service sector, about 55% of GDP. Why India is moving to PPI? The government of India is transitioning from WPI to PPI to align with the global standards. Cleaner data by excluding taxes. PPI tells the RBI if inflation is due to production cost, which interest rate can control, with which interest rates can control, or government taxes which interest rates cannot control. No lag, PPI signals inflation before it hits the WPI or CPI, acting as an early warning system. Comparison table WPI versus CPI versus PPI. So point of measurement, let us understand about the wholesale price index. So a major point of sale, wholesale market. Okay, CPI you have retail shops. Okay, and PPI you have production stage. Okay, who releases it? So WPI is basically released by Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Office of Economic Advisor. Okay, CPI, Consumer Price Index, NSO. Okay, and it is working groups under the Niti Aayog or DPIIT. Okay, now WPI only consider goods. Okay, and CPI you have goods and service both, and PPI is also having goods and services. Okay, WPI includes taxes paid by wholesalers. CPI includes all consumer taxes. Okay, it exclude taxes. PPI exclude taxes. Okay, estimating GDP deflator. Okay, inflation targeting you have here in CPI, DNS Alliance DA, identifying inflation at the root. Now 2011-12 has been the base year. It has 2012. Okay, now related news. Okay, so first is the consumer price index CPI for AL or RL. So labor bureau. So you, if you see the previous question, labor bureau has been one of the favorite topic of the UPSC, from where they have asked question I think 3 times in the last 5 years. So the labor bureau has received the base year of the consumer price index CPI numbers for agricultural laborers and rural laborers to 2019 is equal to 100. It replaces the CPI agriculture laborer and or rural laborer base 1986 87. Okay, series compiled by Labor Bureau, Ministry of Labor and Employment. A person is stated as an agricultural laborer if he or she follows one or more of the agricultural occupation in the capacity of a laborer on a hire, whether paid in cash or kind, or partly in cash or partly in kind. A rural laborer is defined as one who does manual work in rural areas in agriculture and non-agricultural occupations in return for wages in cash or kind, or partly in cash or partly in kind. Now poverty and inequality. So multi poverty index MPI. The United who releases this, so United Nations Development Program UNDP and Oxford Poverty and Human Initiative released 2025 global multinational poverty index MPI. So who releases this? So and UNDP and OPHI, Oxford Poverty and Human Initiative, Oxford Poverty and Human Initiative, Oxford Poverty and Human Initiative, and UNDP, United Nations Development Program, releases the global multidimensional poverty index. Now key highlights of the report: multidimensional poverty, 1.1 billion billion, 18.3 percent out of 6.3 billion people across 109 countries live in acute multidimensional poverty. Oh my god. Poverty and climate hazard. Poverty and climate shocks create a double burden. Poverty drives exposure to climate hazards. These in turn reinforce and prolong poverty. Poverty in India in 2005 to 6, 55.1% of people in India were poor. This year plummeted to 16.4% in 2019 to 21, and roughly 414 million people left poverty. Now, methodology of global MPI. So, deprivation indicators. Computation of the global MPI begins by constructing a deprivation profile for each household and person in it, covering 10 indicators of health, education, and standard of living. A person's deprivation score is the sum of weighted deprivation she or he experiences. The global MPI identifies people as multidimensionally poor if their deprivation score is one third or higher. MPI value. It is a product of the incidence as or the proportion of people who live in multidimensional poverty and intensity of poverty. Uh, Put simply, MPI is equal to H into A. The MPI is known as the adjusted head count ratio. It includes both the share of people in multidimensional poverty and the extent to which they are deprived. MPI values range from 0 to 1. Higher values imply higher poverty. Now, dimensions of the poverty. So there are basically three dimensions of the poverty, and there are 10 indicators. Okay, so under three dimensions there are 10 indicators. So health, we have two, that is nutrition and child mortality. Then education is having two, year of schooling and school attendance. Then living standards is having for six. Cooking fuel, okay, cooking fuel, sanitation, drinking water, electricity, housing, and assets. Okay, so we'll remove all of these highlighted part. So this is the thing. Okay, now, so remember, three dimensions are there. Health, first is health, then you have education, then you have standards. Living standards, health and education. Health, education, and living standards. Now, Niti Aayog National Multidimensional Poverty Index methodology, it uses all 10 indicators from global MPI and incorporating two additional indicators: maternal health and bank accounts. National MPI value, like global MPI, the MPI value is arrived by multiplying the head count ratio and the intensity of poverty indicators. Like the global MPI, India's national MPI has three equally weighted dimensions: health, education, and standard of living, which are represented by 12 indicators. Now, World Inequality Report 2026. World Inequality Lab released a World Inequality Report 2026. So, who releases World Inequality Report? So, it is the World Inequality Lab who has released the World Inequality Report 2026. Now, key highlights of the report: global wealth share. Global top 10% of population on nearly 75% of total wealth, and bottom 50% holds a mere 2%. Income divide. Global top 10% of income earners earns more than remaining 90% combined, and poorest half of the global population receive less than 10% of total global earnings. Now, India, high income inequality. Top 10% of earners capture 58% of the national income. Bottom 50% receives only 15% of the national income. Extreme wealth inequality. Richest 10% hold 65% of total wealth, and top 1% alone holds approximately 40% of total national wealth. Measurement of inequality. Kuznets ratio. It measures the share of income going to the quantities divided by the income going to the bottom quantities. The greater the ratio, the higher the inequality. One example of Kuznets ratio is Palma ratio. Palma ratio is the share of income going to the top 10% divided by the income share of bottom 40%. Okay. Now, Gini index reflects how equally income, wealth, or consumption is distributed across households or individuals in a country. Value range, it ranges in value from 0 to 100%. A score of 0 means perfect inequality. A score of 100 means one person has all the income, wealth, and consumption, and others have none, hence absolute inequality. Now, a Lorentz curve. Lorentz curve graphically, Gini index can be explained by Lorentz curve. Okay, so that is the thing. Now financial inclusion index. Why news? So RBI financial inclusion index has risen to 67% in 2025, up to 25.3% since 2021. Now what is this financial inclusion index? So RBI's financial inclusion index is designed to provide a comprehensive measure of financial inclusion in India. A score of index, it operates on a scale from 0 to 100. 0 signifies complete financial exclusion, and 100 represents full financial inclusion. No base year. Released annually since 2021, and reflects cumulative progress of all stakeholders over the years towards financial inclusion. A structure of index comprises three broad parameters, each with assigned weights and numerous indicators. Now sub indexes, you have these things components you can see. Okay, now let us talk about the public debt in India. So why this is in news? Because Reserve Bank of India, RBI, in its biannual financial stability report FSR 2025 found rising public debt in the Indian economy. Now more on this news. So what is this financial stability report? So financial stability report presents the subcommittee of the Financial Stability and Development Council's (FSTC's) assessment of strength of India's financial system and risks to its stability. FSDS FS Financial Stability and Development Council, established in 2010, is chaired by Finance Minister, is chaired by Finance Minister, and includes heads of regulators like RBI, SEBI, PFRDA, and IDA. It is responsible for ensuring financial stability and coordination among regulators. Key highlights of the report: India is still driver of global growth. Okay, strong financial institutions, rising public debt. India's public debt as a percentage of GDP in 2024 has remained relatively on higher side, more than 80% compared to peer emerging market economies. About public debt in India. Public debt is the accumulated amount of borrowing that the government and the other public sector awardees owe to the private sector and foreign governments. Okay, so let us see once again. So public debt is the accumulated amount of borrowing that the government and the other public sector bodies owe to the private sector and foreign governments. So public debt is the accumulated amount of borrowing that the government and the other public sector bodies owe to the private sector and foreign governments. Okay. Now it includes debt of the central government and the state government, excluding intergovernmental liabilities. Public debt can be internal borrowed within India and the external borrowed from the foreign sources. Internal debt is 96.59% and external debt is 3.41% total public debt of 1 lakh 81,070. Oh, sorry. 1 crore 81 lakh 74,284 crore Union Budget 2025 526. Now about external debt. Let us understand about the external debt. So composition. So US dollar 54.2% remain the largest component, followed by the Indian rupee 31.1% and Japanese yen and SDRs respectively. Now public debt, you have classification: internal debt and external debt. External debt is basically from foreign or the foreign government or the multilateral agencies such as ITB, IDA, IBRD, ADB, etc. You have internet debt, you have market table security like GSEC, T bills, and cash management bills, CMB, and then non-marketable securities, for example, T bills, intermediate T bills, securities against a small saving, etc. Now, borrows non-financial corporation except the central bank held the highest share, that is uh, that is 35.5%, followed by deposit taking corporation 27.5%, and general government 22.9%. Debt instrument loans 34% remain the highest component, followed by currency and deposits. Potential impact of high public debt: increased interest costs, limited fiscal space, potential inflationary pressures, crowding out of private investment and impact growth and intergeneration equity. Legal framework for management of public debt in India. So fiscal responsibility and budget management FRBM Act 2003. It provides a legislative framework for production for sorry reduction of deficit and thereby debt of central government to a substantial level over a medium term. It sets a target of containing it sets a target of containing central government debt to 40% and general government debt to 60% of GDP by 2024-25. Now, RBI Act 1935, under Section 20 of the RBI Act was of this Act, RBI was obliged to manage the central government public debt. Government Securities Act 2006, it amends the law relating to government securities and its management by RBI. With this, the Public Debt Act 1945 ceases to apply to government securities. Now, reasons for high public debt. What are the reasons? So, persistent fiscal deficits. Okay, central government gross fiscal deficit stood at 15.77 lakh crore for financial year 2024-25 against revised estimates of 15.69 lakh crore. Controller General of Accounts. High revenue expenditure. Total expenditure stood at 46.56 lakh crore with revenue expenditure recorded at 36.004 lakh crore. Now external debt growth. India's external debt rose 10% to $736.3 billion at the end of March. RBI. Now pandemic era spending. Central government debt rose driven by COVID related healthcare and welfare spending. Now Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation. Amit, so let us talk about the Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation. Amit, now why this is in news? Because Amrit scheme has completed a decade since its launch. Amrit scheme has completed a decade since its launch, so this becomes important because we know that the UPSC asks those topics frequently, which completes 50 years, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years. Okay, so that is why it is important. So the ministry, so it comes under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. So what is Amrit? So it is Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. It is centrally sponsored scheme. Okay, so let us discuss. So it was launched in selected 5,500 cities and towns, focusing on the development of basic infrastructure in the sectors of water supply, sewage, sewerage, septage management, storm water drainage, green spaces and parks, and non-motorized urban transport. Amrit was assumed in Amrit 2.0 in 2021 with the urban transport component excluded from its scope. Let us understand the Amrit 2.0. So Amrit 2.0 focuses only on water and sewage and aims to provide tap water to all households in statutory towns and improve sewage management in 500 Amrit cities. Major components Pay Jal Sarvekshan. It is a challenge-based assessment in cities to evaluate service level benchmarks for water supply, reuse, sewage, and water body conservation. Behavior change communication to promote water conservation and improve water use efficiency. Technology submission promotes startup ideas and private entrepreneurship through expert screen pilot projects. Amrit 2.0 mission, Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation. Key objective: 100% sewerage management in 500 Amrit cities, complete septage management system, water security cities, rejuvenation of water bodies, urban aquifer management, rainwater harvesting. Pejal Survekshan. Now, universal water supply coverage in all statutory towns, ensuring water access for every household. Now, other features. So, public-private partnership (PPP) projects mandatory in cities with over 1 million population. Outcome-based funding. Cities must submit roadmap to achieve set targets. Now, community participation with emphasis on women's self-help groups. Promote circular economy of water by focusing on recycle reuse of treated sewage. rejuvenation of waters, bodies, and water conservation. Monitoring national level and apex committee is chaired by Secretary, Ministry of Home Affairs and Housing, Ministry of Affairs, Home and Urban Affairs. State level state high powered stating committee chaired by Chief Secretary of State. Other key initiative under Amrit: Jal Hi Amrit to treat and reuse water safety. Amrit Mitra to foster skills among SSG self-help group women related to water management in their communities. Now, other key developments. So, India fourth largest economy as per the recent World Economic Outlook of IMF. So, World Economic Outlook of IMF, India has surpassed Japan to become fourth largest economy worldwide. Top largest economies: US dollar 330 point US 30.5 trillion dollar, China 19.2 trillion dollar, Germany 4.74 trillion dollar, India 4.18 trillion dollar. Okay, so what is GDP? So GDP is the total market value of all final goods and services produced within the domestic territory of a country during a given period of time, usually 1 year. Okay, now you have the GDP calculation method, you have product value method, expenditure method. Okay, so you can see all of them. Officially methodology how India calculates GDP. So it is on the GDP market price, GPA basic price plus net product taxes. Okay, so let us so you can see all this. Okay, now Mosby releases capex capital expenditure survey. Okay, so the forward looking survey on the private sector capex investment intentions capex survey, the first of its kind by the National Statistics Office under Mosby, was conducted under the collection of the Statistics Act 2008. Now, what is the key findings? So, private sector capex grew 66% from financial year 22 to financial year 25, reaching nearly rupees 6.5 lakh crore. Manufacturing enterprises accounted for 48% of total private sector capex in financial year 24-25. About capital expenditure. So what is this? So definition: capital expenditure is the money spent by the government on the development of machinery, building, health facility, and education, etc. Capital expenditure includes money spent on the following: acquiring fixed and intangible assets, upgradation of existing asset, and repayment of loan. Capital expenditure creates assets for the future, results in long-term benefits, or one time or infrequent spending. Revenue expenditure does not create assets or reduce liability. Day-to-day operational spending, ongoing recurring spending. Now, international standards of accounting and reporting ISAR. India secure an uncontested position in United Nations Intergovernmental Working Group of Expert ISAR for 2025-27 term. About ISAR, so international standards of accounting and accounting International Standards of Accounting and Reporting (ISAR) is a UN global forum of policymakers, regulators, standard setters, and experts in the area of enterprise accounting and reporting. Mandate to assist member states to improving the quality and international comparability of financial reporting and non-financial disclosures such as environmental issues, corporate governance, and corporate social responsibility. Mission to facilitate investment, development, and economic stability by promoting good practices in corporate transparency and accounting through policy framework and guiding tools. Session It holds its annual session in Geneva to address emerging issues in enterprises, accounting, and reporting. Membership: ISAR allows for 34 normal formal members to serve 3-year terms. These members include 9 African, 7 Asian, 6 Latin American, 3 Eastern European, and 9 Western European and other states. Now, Human Development Report. Human Development Report 2025. United Nations Development Program (UNDP) report title: A Matter of Choice. A Matter of Choice: People and Possibilities in the Age of AI, highlights the critical role of AI in shaping the next chapter of human development. Key findings of the report. Key findings of the report. So basically, India's Human Development Index as HDI rank, India moved up 3 spots of rank. to 130 out of 119 countries in 2025 Human Development Report. India remains in the medium human development category. India remains in the medium human development category. Okay, life expectancy. India's life expectancy is to 72 years in 2023, marking the highest since the index began. Schooling and education. The average mean years of schooling in India is 13 years, up from 8.2 years in 1990. Challenges and challenges despite progress. National income. India's gross national income per capita rank is 7 position below the SDI rank. Uh, Inequality, gender disparities remain significant. For example, India ranks 102nd on the Gender Inequality Index, reflecting challenges in reproductive health, political representation, and workforce participation. Global trends in human development. Globally, the human development progress had slowed to its weakest pace since 1990. The inequality between low and very high SDI countries has increased for fourth consecutive year. Three key dimensions and indicators. So there are three key dimensions and indicators. Three key dimensions and indicators. The HDI value is the geometric mean of normalized indices for following three dimensions. Scored 0 to 1. So dimension, these are the dimension: long and healthy life. Okay, indicator life expectancy at birth. Goal measures longevity and access to healthcare. Access to knowledge, mean years of schooling adults 25 plus, expected years of schooling children, measures literacy and education attainment. Now there is a third standard of living, GNI per capita. PPP in US dollar measures purchasing power and decent living standards. Okay, so that is thing. Now, so we are done with the fifth chapter also, which was basically growth and development. Okay, and before that we have done the remaining part of chapter number 4, which is external sector. Okay, so yesterday we started with the external sector. We did discuss uh, from till here, and then we started today from remittance tax. Okay, and then we started with the growth and development, and we ended this. Okay, now the next topic is the chapter number 6. So chapter number 6, agriculture and allied sector. Okay, so let me check how much it is. So 3. So this is around 7 to 8 page. Okay, so we'll discuss. So thank you very much. We'll discuss agriculture and allied sector in the next lecture. Okay, so thank you so much.